This week we're going to be looking at the equations of linear functions that are written in what's called slope-point form. The equation of this line in slope-point form is this. It's y minus y1 is equal to m multiplied by, in brackets, x minus x1. And what this is the x1 and y1 represent a point on the line, and m still represents the slope. And these x and y values here represent any unknown x or y value that could be on this line. So what we're going to look at this first problem is we're going to write an equation for a graph of a linear function in slope-point form that has a slope of -3 and passes through the point A at -5 and 2. So looking at this information, we know in the equation m represents the slope. The slope is -3. We also know in this equation that x1 and y1 represent a point on this line. So we are given this point that the line passes through, -5 and 2. So this is our x1 and our y1. So to create this equation, what we'll do is we'll fill in this information that we're given into this standard equation for slope-point form. So if we look at this, y is going to represent any y value that exists on this line. So we will just leave that as y. y1 represents this value in the point A, which is 2. So we're going to subtract y1, which is 2. And then the slope, which is our m value, is -3. X again represents any possible x value on this line. And x1 is going to be this point in A, which is -5. So we are going to subtract -5. Now really, we won't leave this as x subtract -5. We will change the sign here, since when you subtract a negative, it's really the same thing as adding. So here's our equation in slope-point form. Y subtract 2 equals -3 bracket x plus 5. If we look at another one that's similar, look, this one says has a slope of 3/5 and passes through the point G, which is 2 and 6. So again, look here, our slope for this problem is 3/5. The point G represents our x1 and y1 values, which are 2 for x1 and 6 for y1. And then if we fill this in the equation, we substitute these values. If we look, it's going to be y, subtract the y1 is 6. The slope is 3/5. The x value, subtract the x1 value, which is 2. And this is our equation. There is no extra simplifying we need to do with this one. Now, something that you should notice is that going from the one thing that changes in the equation are these points. If you look, it's a -5 here on the graph, but in the equation it's a +5. On the actual point on the graph is a 2, but in the equation it's actually a subtract 2. And that is the same for this case. Look, it's a +2 on the graph, the point on the graph, but in the equation it's a subtract 2. And on the graph, it's a +6, but in the equation, it's a -6. So if you're looking long-term to shorten things up a little bit or shorten your work, the point that you're given in the equation, these signs will change. So here, it's y subtract the 6, where it was a positive here, and x subtract the 2, where it was a positive there. The same here. It's x plus that 5, and it's y subtract that 2.